You only have one kid? Is it Zach or no?
No, I have an older son too. He's got a brother who's 9 years older, so he's 32, turning 33. So
Nice.
it's almost two only kids, right? At that point.
Right. Like they're kind of, they grew up separate almost.
Yeah, and opposites.
Yeah. It happens. But watching the podcast with Tyson is so interesting because Tyson, like, he started to get, like, mad. He's so, like,
He's
weird.
a very aggressive
He's
personality.
so weird.
And you know what it is? I've seen this with him. And I didn't say anything to Zach because I know he knows how to handle himself. Mm-hmm. But with interviews, going way back, when he doesn't want to be there anymore for whatever reason, I don't know what he wants to go do or get out, he like gets aggressive. And a lot of times the host will either argue with him or say something, and then that just gives him an excuse to kind of blow it up. But Zach didn't do any of that, and it turned out to be a really good interview. And I think it seemed like Tyson enjoyed it a lot by the end, It
was excellent. And the way that Zach handled himself when he was like, Tyson wanted the questions to be based on the event that was going on.
Yeah, but then right before that, he talked about UFC. And then when Zach asked him about the girls, right, he went into a thing about Clarissa Shields who didn't have anything to do with the event. So it was kind of interesting. But that's Mike. I think he means what he's saying, but he's all
I don't think anybody could understand, like, what goes through Mike Tyson's head.
Give me some more pigeons. I mean.
Yeah. Like, he's just such an interesting guy. But then Zach did great. He was like, all right, so let's talk about the event. And then he bounced right back. And Tyson was smiling at the end, so...
Yeah, and
cool.
He went and saw him the next day. Zach told me at the banquet they had for the event, and he asked Zach to take a picture, and it was super friendly the next day. So
yeah, I mean, he means well, I believe. I don't know, never met the guy, but I've always wanted to have him on our podcast one day.
You got to be.
You got to do it soon, though.
Yeah, you got to be prepared with him. It goes in a lot of different directions, apparently.
Yeah, you don't want to be on his bad side.
There's like a compilation of interviews that didn't go well.
I want to take it back to, like, he fought Jake Paul. Do you think it was scripted? Let's be real.
No, absolutely.
You don't think it was?
No. I mean, the penalty, I was involved in boxing, is you go to jail.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's legit.
That's what people don't understand is, that say all these kind of things is that literally people have gone to jail, during the time I was in boxing for much less. So when there's so much money on the line anyway, but I'm the same age as Mike Tyson. You can't box anymore at this age. You just can't. I can't box, with somebody else who's young. He can't either. I mean, it just, unfortunately, it's like a young person's game, maybe tennis or something. If you have a lot more ability than someone else, you can still compensate, but not in boxing. Your reflexes aren't there. You can see what you want to do, but you can't actually do it.
And you said you've seen people go away for much less?
Yeah, in the boxing world.
What are we talking about? Like, what are things that boxers are doing?
Not boxers per se, but this is going back now over 20 years. So I have I don't want to pretend to have some special knowledge about what goes on today because I don't. But people went to jail for allegedly fixing some fights. So it was like, it's not like maybe use that tennis analogy again, where I've read that, people were accused of that and they got suspended or they got some sort of fine. In the U.S., it's a crime because there's so much money gambled on it.
Yeah. Gambling is taking over this world today, I think.
Wow.
I think it's a terrible thing, but I also think it's a good thing.
Yeah, it brings a lot of money into sports and into podcasts like yours and things like that. But I think the confluence of gambling and culture and sports just needs to be both managed properly, but also you just have to take it in proper perspective. And, I'm not a gambler.
Because it's so addictive. And, like, you look at how much people do it and how much people lose everything. Because it's just one button on your phone and you can just gamble your life savings away.
Well, it's the same thing with the stock market, too.
That sort of is gambling, too, right? Or crypto or whatever.
It's like a more formal version of gambling, you could say.
50-50 versus, you could say.
It's gambling. I guess there's an idea of what might happen, but that's the same thing with gambling, I guess. I don't know, what makes them different?
Like Zach has shared winning picks with some people. week over week, and then they'll go and take whatever they want and bet it on other things that he said, don't do that.
Yeah.
They don't take that advice, and I guess there's something in
So we researched about you, and before boxing, you were like worked. You managed a media company, or you owned it. Like, can you take
Yeah.
us back to like the original roots before boxing?
Well, I'm going way back to like my childhood
Yeah.
sort of thing. I got into boxing by being influenced by Muhammad Ali. I got to see him train here in Miami Beach at the Fifth Street Gym at that time as a very young child, 5, 6 years old, whatever. And he was just such an incredible individual and such a, like an inspiring figure that it really made me want to be involved with boxing, or at least drew me towards boxing. And so it was always a part of my life, but I knew that my future wasn't going to be a world champion. I didn't have that sort of level of ability, and I always wanted to be involved. I remember in high school, I was your age, and they said, I don't know what, maybe 10th grade or something. What do you want to be? And I said, I want to be a boxing promoter like Don King. And I remember literally just saying that, so it's kind of wild. So it's always what I wanted to do. My first job was with a company called Lens Express. Of all things, we sold contact lenses direct to people, but the vast majority of it was the marketing. And so I got very involved in that at a very young age, and very early in the internet marketing, before there was an internet, I guess online marketing, I would say, with the bulletin board systems and stuff going back to like 1990. Prodigy, CompuServe, which kind of preceded those things, and built a store in the first AOL mall. So like very early in that world, and just got a little lucky of being in the right place, right time when sort of a evolution was going on, and early in social media and things. In my marketing / data company, we worked with like MySpace and Napster and some really cool early internet companies. So I got to see a lot of that. And when I sold my company in 2002, I had a non-compete, which kept
do
me out of
anything.
that, the industry. And then, I always had the love for boxing, and I loved racquetball as well. Played a lot of racquetball when I was a kid, and said,
So from 2002 to 2006, when you won the WBC Manager of the Year, right?
yeah, it was, I think, WBO. Yeah.
Oh,
Close enough, though.
Yeah.
They're all the same. They don't think so.
in that like 5-year period, or 4,
Yeah.
what did you do to manage to win it? I mean, like, it's pretty crazy.
Oh, that's an interesting question. Well, what I started with one fighter, and sort of by accident, I knew a young guy who had done a website for a boxer, and he introduced me to him and I said, all right, I was getting into this, and I knew I was going to have some fun with it. I had another business that was totally in a different industry, but it certainly wasn't fun or exciting, and it didn't take up much of my time. So I was able to spend a lot of time on boxing. And that guy was named Mitch Blood Green. He was a wild, crazy character. He actually got into a street fight with Mike Tyson. He was one of Mike's early opponents. I would say Mike won, but he broke his hand. It was a pretty short fight. The guy who lost was a guy named Dapper Dan. I don't know if you guys ever heard of him. He's a designer. He became pretty big eventually with like Gucci and stuff. But he had a store in those days in Harlem where he sold all kinds of stuff, and he didn't have like proper licenses. Maybe he didn't pay his taxes. I don't know what exactly happened. But he ended up the fight took place in front of his store, and he ended up getting the store closed. It drew a lot of attention to him. I think Mike and Mitch were both okay.
That's crazy.
And you also managed Shannon Bridges?
Shannon Briggs, yeah. I was working with a number of other fighters, but I would say I had my most success with Shannon Briggs, though. And we met previously a few years earlier in my marketing company. Somebody just brought him there, and he was a boxer that loved marketing, and I was a marketer that loved boxing. And so it was sort of a natural marriage. But we didn't see each other for a few years, and he just showed up at the same gym as I was in. He was like, "What are you doing with these guys?" I'm like, "What do you mean? We're having fun, we're doing." So he goes, "Man, you need to work with somebody good, someone that can win a world title." And I said, "It's just keep me busy." And he goes, "No, you need to work with me." And then I said, "Oh, would you like that?" And he's like, "Yeah." And I remember we left and we drove to his house, and it was like he and I and his wife, and we decided to work together that day. And I said, "Within a year, you're going to be the heavyweight champion of the world." And he said, "Well, within a year, you'll be the manager of the year." And that was 2005.
Really?
Yeah.
Crazy.
That's golden.
And so, what do you think you guys did to get that?
We took a tough fight, which was here in South Florida at the Hard Rock, actually. It was against a guy named Ray Mercer. And he had been WBO World Heavyweight Champion, and he had been Olympic gold medalist. So we knew going in that, this is a tough guy. This is a fight that a lot of people saw 50-50. Some people didn't think Shannon would win. I was pretty confident he would. And so we kind of, people would say he rolled the dice, but I think it was more than rolling dice. I believed in him, and we did everything possible, and he did everything possible, especially he did, to prepare, for it. And he won the fight, and that put us into the rankings. And we just, Shannon had, unfortunately, for reasons that to this day I don't understand, been sort of blackballed by the two prevailing networks at the moment, which were Showtime and HBO. So we went on an interesting kind of run where we took any fight we could get for a period of about a year and a half. And I think we did like 7 fights during that time, 6 or 7, against just whoever the, most available, best opponent that could help us get where we wanted to go, regardless of the location, regardless of the money, regardless of any of that, with the idea of winning the heavyweight championship of the world. And that our only focus was on the rankings and getting up there.
He went on a 7-win streak, right?
Yeah, he won every one by knockout during that time, including some guys that had never lost. So it was...
And 7 fights in a year is a lot.
Yeah,
especially
maybe it was like a
compared to
year and
now.
a half, but...
Still.
Either way, it's a lot.
Yeah, he made a joke about it. He said that he had read about how, or heard about how Sugar Ray Robinson fought like 20 times in a year. And he said, but I didn't know you was his manager, because I was always pushing him. Right after Mercer, we fought, and this is a really tough fight. I think it was 3 weeks later, maybe 4 weeks later, which was like unheard of, because I found some card in Arkansas, and then we found a card in Puerto Rico, and it was like any fight that was available. We weren't saying no, we were going.
I mean, I think back then they used to fight so much, and now they're fighting like once a year at most, like all the, famous ones.
Absolutely. I think there's 2 reasons for it. I think that the sport has changed in that now there's really only a few companies or promoters that control everything. And then secondly, I think that people realize, and you see it with MMA as well as boxing, so you can only take so much punishment. Yeah. And how good is that really for you to be in some of these wars again and again? They're human, and some of these fights can be pretty brutal. And I think that, so some of it, I believe, is the business condition out there, which is fewer promoters, fewer opportunities, and you have to align yourself with a particular promoter, a particular platform. I don't even want to say TV network anymore. They're really more platforms. A lot of them are app-based and whatever. And then the other is from a health perspective, I think that guys are not jumping in the ring a month later like maybe a young Tyson did or we did there with Shannon.
I agree. I think the health perspective is huge. Also, fighters, in my opinion now, they want everything to line up perfectly, whether it's the amount they're being paid and it's the weight, everything. Like they're very specific. As opposed to like back then, I think they just like wanted to go, go, go.
Well, I think it was maybe more than they wanted to. They got empowered along the way. And Floyd Mayweather and a few others, maybe kind of realized that they could change the dynamic by becoming the promoter per se, and then when you become the A side, you're the big draw. You're able to dictate some of those things, and why not to your advantage? Because it's a very dangerous sport. You have a relatively short career. Even the longest of careers are relatively short.
I mean, speaking of careers, Floyd Mayweather and Manny Pacquiao are going back at it again.
Yeah, that's wild, huh?
I don't know how they're going to do it.
What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think they're about the same age and about the same size and all of that. So if that's what they want to do, I support it. I think that financially it's probably beneficial to them at this point, and I think that's probably driving some of it. And
I think Floyd Mayweather's dirt broke right now.
yeah, he's got some very big litigation going on, and we'll see how that pans out. He got a settlement. The first kind of domino dropped in his favor. So we'll see how that works out.
But you look at all the social, he spends so much money. I can't imagine.
Well, his name is Floyd Money Mayweather for a reason.
Yeah, he's really been a trailblazer in boxing and sort of taking that behind the scenes stuff, the 24/7 as they called it, and really making it sort of reality TV and being a self-promoter. And it wasn't like Tyson, people just wanted to see if someone's really going to get knocked out in 30 seconds or a minute. I think I think he did probably the best job of selling himself, promoting himself, of creating the Money Mayweather character of anyone,
I mean, in this day and age, it's Jake Paul. I mean, even though he's started off as a YouTuber, his ability to sell a fight he's probably number one at it. I don't see a better person doing that.
Right now, 100%.
Yeah, I think his ability to sell anything,
Yeah. Also, so many people want to watch him lose.
Yeah, and if you look at Mayweather, you looked at Muhammad Ali back in my day.
Yeah.
So many people wanted to watch them lose, and I think that from a perspective of somebody that's, whether it's a Jake Paul or Floyd Mayweather or whoever, I think they understand that, and they're just as happy as long as they pay, People that want to watch them win or watch them lose, and they've gone beyond whatever of that being an issue as long as they want to watch them.
Mm-hmm. And he did lose. I mean, he got his jaw broken by Anthony Joshua.
I thought that was crazy and yet unbelievable that he would step up and fight Anthony Joshua.
Yeah, you have to have big balls.
It takes balls.
Yeah, it
Oh my
does.
God, I can't imagine,
You see
because
the
first
size
of all, he's not
difference.
even a heavyweight, and he's got so much more limited experience.
Yeah,
than,
and he's not
than
nearly
somebody
as
like
skilled.
Joshua.
And I think Jake is skilled in general, but against a guy like Joshua,
He's come so far. I was there in the very, very first days of him boxing, which was the only time I've really been involved with any of Zach stuff because he was so young. He was a junior here at Space of Mind, and I went out with him for his first trip to California, maybe his first couple. And I remember Jake sparring and training in Logan's backyard and just being there with Zach and, trying to stay in the background, but watching it all. And everyone, including myself and everyone who was sort of educated in boxing and whatever, believed Logan Paul was going to be the big star in boxing, and his management believed that, and Shannon Briggs, who I just mentioned. This guy Milton LaCroix was a very experienced trainer.
Yeah,
And
as
they
a
all
trainer,
believed
yeah.
that, and I believed it. And Zach, for whatever reason, was absolutely convinced that it was Jake, who didn't really have a trainer per se at that time or a fight, and he was there training in Logan's backyard and just kind of jumping in with any of the sparring partners that were done. And his skill set from there, and I don't know whether it's 2018, 19, I don't, whatever that was, to hear the difference in the development is,
Crazy,
yeah, it's
honestly.
unbelievable how far he's come.
Why do you think that Jake ended up being the star in boxing and not Logan?
I don't know. If I really knew, I would. I guess having the hindsight now to see it, I think he was very determined, and that's
Yeah.
what Zach always said, that he wants it more, and that he's tough, and that he really likes fighting, and that he was totally dedicated to it.
And not only fighting, they're able to build brands. W Prime.
Oh
They're
yeah, yeah.
building
Logan
more.
did that very well too.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
take nothing wrong.
And Jake
As a
with
businessman,
boxing.
as a promoter, he was
Yeah.
he was excellent too. But I think Jake actually, at least according to Zach, has really liked that aspect of it.
And he's got most valuable promotions, the
Yeah.
boxing promotion.
With Nikisa, who had been the CFO over at UFC, and had guy who's been successful, knows the
Robes.
combat sports game, and I think throughout his different operations, and I've learned this sort of secondhand from Zach and meeting some of these people, it seems like he's brought in some very good people around him.
Yeah. And Jake's interesting because he's on both sides of it with fighting and the backhand with the money and the business.
Yeah.
You think it's beneficial for him? He makes more money when you're the promoter and the owner of MVP.
I'm sure it gives you an ability to make more money because, on the promotional side, you can negotiate some of that. And I think he's sort of a visionary that wants to do it his way. And that's sort of what things have evolved to where, a smart guy like him can come in and doesn't have to go through a system where he has to sign with a particular promoter and have a manager, in the traditional sense. And that's a whole different world from even where I was involved 20 years ago.
And then I know this is off topic, but I'm so curious with my age, and I'm graduating this year early. I'm just like starting a company when you did it and starting a company now. I feel like it's so different. Like you started a media company. Nowadays, I want to start something too, but I don't think there's anything to start. I think nowadays you need to start a trade company, and trade is what's going to get you wealthy. I think like my idea was seawall. Miami and down here, all these seawalls need a replacement in the next 10 to 15 years because they were installed 100 years ago, and it's like $1,000 a square foot, and people are going to need seawalls. So I was planning on going to trade school, learning that, and then starting a company.
I think that part hasn't changed. I think that the key, at least from my opinion and for what it's worth, is finding an opportunity and maybe seeing an opportunity other people don't see, and moving on that opportunity. Because some people do see it and then they don't move on it. Like Zach and his partner have a company they started at pretty young age, and I didn't see it as tremendously different than the way we did it, except I would say with technology and things, everything's just faster.
Yeah, and you navigated such a tricky topic of the internet when it first started. What set you apart to have great success with that when so many people lost pretty much their life savings during that era?
Oh, and the .com
And
crash?
yeah,
Again, I'm going to point to good luck. I was sort of fortunate, though it seemed like misfortune at that moment, not to have that Silicon Valley, big VC money, any of that involved, where I had some pressure to go public. And the thought process then was just grow, 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 and don't worry about profit yet. It's all about growth, and scaling the business. And I didn't know that coming from my background in the contact lens business. I knew only about making a profit, what you had left in your bank account at the end of the week or at the end of the month was, kind of the how you would judge your business, which is very different than what was in vogue at that moment. And so we ran it that way while we grew it quite large, not nearly as frenetically maybe as some others. And when the dot-com crash came, all of a sudden, these other businesses that had this huge volume but were bleeding a ton of money, well, nobody was willing to give them that money anymore, and a lot of them went away. And businesses like ours that were profitable and kind of built on more traditional business foundations ended up being more, more valuable all of a sudden and more successful. And sort of there was a market turn where they were looking for profitability. I can't tell you I anticipated that or anything. And we ended up selling our business a matter of within 6 or 8 months after 9/11, which people would have told you was the worst time ever to sell it, after the dot-com crash after 9/11. But we had a very solid business, so it was.
So why'd you do it anyway, even though people were saying that was a terrible time to sell?
We had a really good offer, and
One you couldn't refuse?
at that time we had had like a board of directors, we had some other investors in, and one nobody else wanted to refuse. I was fine with refusing it personally,
But you didn't want to be that one guy.
yeah, and I couldn't argue with they'd seen what happened with the dot-com crash with everyone else, and there's an old saying, you never get hurt taking a profit. So nobody.
So what was your thought process behind being fine to refuse the offer?
I believed in myself, and I believed in our team around us, and I thought that ultimately we'd be successful over the long term, continue that, and I was enjoying what I was doing.
And then you were convinced to accept.
Yeah.
And how did that feel for you? Were you a little bit slow to agree, or you were kind of happy either way?
I wasn't particular. People always assume that because all of a sudden you're in a very good financial position. Maybe you'd never been in your life. I certainly hadn't. I didn't come from, money or whatever, but I wasn't particularly happy about it. And fortunately, we talked about the boxing gave me something to do and something that I was happy with until the time expired, and the 5 years went quicker than I thought, and I was able to get back in.
And so you made the deal happen. Were you ever afraid, was there negotiations going on, or it was just one straight deal, you accepted and that was it?
We were talking to one company. We were very close to selling it, and then another company came in with an even better offer. And I never understood why they wanted to buy the company, but, you can't always understand what people are thinking on the other side of the table.
And so the deal was the deal happened, and you cash out. What are you feeling?
I didn't know what to feel. You would think elation and all those kind of things, but not really, because I had a place to go every day, and I liked the people I was working with, and we had built it from nothing. It was my idea, and having seen it grow is like sort of like your kid goes away, and you find out they're adopted by the wrong people. But but of course, there's the reality, which is financially it was very good. And I would say for some period of time until I got busy again, so the boxing ended up being very cathartic for me, that I wasn't, as happy as maybe you would assume people are when they sell a business for a bunch of money.
I mean, boxing, you went into boxing from nobody really knows what it's like behind the scenes from a manager, promoter. Is it profitable? Because when you look at these companies like Ring paying these fighters $300 million contracts, in my mind, a fight's not bringing in $300 million. I mean, how is that possible?
Well, that's a different a different paradigm than what I experienced. Ring Magazine is owned by Turkey Al Sheikh, and and I imagine his companies. I don't know exactly how it's structured. So, and he's His Excellency in the within the Saudi government and hierarchy and everything. And so I would say his funds are a little deeper than probably had been involved in the boxing when I was involved. And he, I think, has a big picture. He bought, Ring. He's part of, I believe, that DAZN, DAZN, the app. He's part of, I believe, the new venture, and I don't know exactly how it's structured with Dana White and the guys from WME,
Zepha,
Zuffa Boxing.
Zuffa.
Yeah, so he's part of a number of things. He must see a big picture. I don't know, I can't account for that. We didn't have anything like that when I was involved. The fights had to make sense. You would go and negotiate with a promoter on your fighter's behalf, and they were surprisingly, if you're a good manager and you build a relationship, transparent in terms of, hey, this is, and the Muhammad Ali Act, which contributed towards that. But even then, there's ways to be more opaque if they wanted to. This is the kind of money that's coming in from TV. This is what I anticipate from the gate. Here's the undercard. Here's whatever, and this is about, kind of a slot that you could fit into, and then you do your best to negotiate the money and the conditions within that reality.
Because you think of like boxing as a sport and making a lot of money, but that's not true. It's really the top 5 people in boxing that are making the money. And I don't know if that's fair for the undercard. Like you think of the undercard and the main card. The main card is making so much more than these other fighters, and like,
yeah. Now, when I was involved, the disparity was not nearly as big. And the cards were deeper, meaning that there would be like more than one sort of like a co-main event per se. And but the top people always made more. But I think if you look at any individual sport, to go back to tennis or golf or whatever, the people that win make the money, and it's sort of true in boxing too. But you're right, the disparity today is it. I mean, there's a huge chasm between somebody that is pretty darn good and somebody that isn't. But the other hand, it's also who can draw the eyes and who can bring the fans, who can put, people in the seats. And what I've seen with Jake Paul, to go back to that in MVP, what he's done with the women's boxing and even some of the undercard fighters on his cards.
Developed it so much.
Yeah, they're all paid significantly more than anywhere else. And I think that's a very positive thing.
He has some beef with Dana White on that. If you're going to preach fighters are getting underpaid, you have to pay them more. You can't just be all talk and no game when you have your own company.
Yeah, I mean, look, like, I think Dana White's definitely struggling a little bit in terms of like the situation. Like, I don't think the White House card is good. I don't.
No, oh, you mean the card itself?
The card itself, yeah. I think you have Justin Gaethje versus Ilya Topuria, and I don't think Gaethje's going to win. So now you have an event that's supposed to be patriotic, and then you're going to have somebody that's not American win, right? And then also, like, with the whole Zuffa boxing, like, you think that's any good?
Looks like it will be. I have to be. I didn't know coming in, but just several fighters have recently signed.
Connor Ben,
and others that are people don't know about yet that are pretty significant, and it looks like it's gaining momentum. And when you have sort of that. You have people like Netflix involved, and then you have, potentially you have the Saudis involved who are they're very sharp guys, and they've been very successful for a reason.
They're loaded, yeah.
Yeah, and they didn't get loaded by accident.
Nothing like that Saudi money.
But Dana White stood away from the boxing industry and has spoken publicly about he's about how he would never get into the boxing industry. Now it's
I had
changed.
heard that. I didn't understand because his background's boxing.
Yeah.
He
Well, yeah,
came from
he's-
boxing, you know. He was a Boston guy who was, you know, was into boxing. And when I first would see him in Vegas and I didn't know him, he would be around boxers and everything. And I guess he had a great vision of what the ultimate. I remember watching the first UFC.
Oh, that was crazy. Those two guys going
like
at
no
it.
weight classes.
Yeah.
That's fun.
There was a boxer involved, a guy named Art Jimerson. He was a light heavyweight boxer. He wore one glove and had one, you know, it was just so wild, the idea. And he's the cousin of Christy Spinks, who's the wife of Corey Spinks, who was one of the fighters I managed, who was a world champion. He passed away somewhat recently, rest in
R.I.P.
peace, Art. But he was in that original UFC, and I remember watching Hoist Gracie and Shamrock and all those kind of guys over the early UFC days. But it wasn't a financial success. It did a great job promoting Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, which might have been the real driver behind it. But how Dana White took that, you know, and then evolved it into what it became, I can't even imagine, you know, incredible success out of, you know, something that number one, there wasn't demand for. Number two, most states, it was illegal. You know,
Yeah.
it wasn't even available. Yeah. So he did a great job. I don't know him personally, but, you know, turning that into something, you know, very significant. And I think when something matures, it gets harder to do because people start to realize what their worth is. Like, you know, like you said in boxing today, and the same there with, I think, John Jones and Conor McGregor and some of these other guys are demanding more. And, you know, you have. So it's probably not as easy to make the fights as it once was, you know.
When you don't have unlimited money coming in.
Yeah, and the fighters feel they have some other alternatives or
Yeah.
they've made enough money or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, John Jones is an interesting case.
You saw the recent video about him like getting like a
Oh yeah, he like chased some guy
he
down.
chased some guy
Yeah,
down
yeah.
and got out.
You saw that?
Yeah, if you're going to have a road rage incident, probably
Not with
the
John
last
Jones.
person you want to have with the John
Literally,
Jones.
like the
That's a good reason to teach you, like, you know, proper driving etiquette and just being polite.
If I
you
saw
know?
John Jones, I'm gonna be like, "Oh, I'm so sorry.
even if he like cut me off, I'd be like, my bad.
It's on me."
I think the guy flipped him off first, right?
Yeah.
Just kind of said, I try to be polite on the road, but I think that's a great, it just kind of emphasizes how you should be. Because
Yeah,
you never know you can run into.
You might not want to piss off the greatest fighter of all time, but
No.
that's
What
just a
is
thought.
your opinion? Boxers who would win in a street fight? A boxer or an MMA guy?
Well, are we saying they're both like the same weight and in their prime
Same
and
weight
all
in
that
their
kind of thing?
prime. Just on the
If they
street.
don't get knocked out in one or two punches, probably one almost, the MMA, because, you know, most boxers don't know that aspect. There are probably some that do, you know,
Yeah.
but, you know, you get hit by one boxer one time, you know,
Well,
anything could happen. But I would say that I would have to favor the MMA guys because they just, you know, and that's what was shown in the original UFC is that jiu-jitsu sort of grappling style and the ability to choke you out. And
I mean, the Russians can choke out a bear.
yeah,
I think that's kind of an issue for the UFC. Is like the best fighters are the ones that are the grapplers and the wrestlers, which is not as entertaining as seeing punches being thrown.
absolutely. But I think they're all kind of more rounded today, whereas the fighters that started as grapplers, wrestlers, their striking is pretty darn good. You know, it's not like, you know, UFC 1 where you knew how to do one or the other. Everyone has some pretty strong abilities in all of them, maybe not as good as some others.
Yeah.
And they're I mean, I think they're very well-rounded as athletes, just my opinion.
No,
And,
that's fair. That's fair.
you know, some of them are pretty good boxers and better than others. And some of them are, you know, have got a great wrestling background, great jiu-jitsu background, but they seem to be able to do some of everything. And I think that's what keeps some of them on their feet for as long as they are, is that they know the other guy's just as good on the ground so that they don't have that same sort of drive like Hoist Gracie had to immediately get you down there and try to choke you out.
I mean, Kamar Usman also lives in my neighborhood. You know that?
I knew he lived down here, but I didn't know exactly
Yeah.
where.
Jamil was telling me that. I've seen him with his kid. I never want to go up to him because I feel like when you're like that guy and you're like, it's your safe space and, you know,
Well, you never know.
you never know. He seems like a nice guy, but if I like knocked on his door, it's like, hey, you want to come on my like that's your safe space. I don't want to get knocked
going
out.
to someone's house is
Yeah.
probably a little too aggressive. Zach met Sugar Rashad Evans at it was either Walgreens or CVS, and he was there with his mom, and he just went up and started talking to him. And I don't know, maybe he was 10 or 11 or something. You have to ask him. And they've developed a relationship. And later he came on Zach's like early iPick wins videos he was doing, and then they ended up, doing a podcast together.
Yeah.
So you never know. Some of
That's
these
true.
relationships you can build early, and you kind of build a relationship that I didn't have with Floyd Mayweather relatively early too.
He has a relationship with Floyd Mayweather?
Yeah, he's got a good he's had over the years anyways, a good relationship. He's interviewed him a few times, and at a very young age, Floyd was very, very open and very good with him and giving him advice. And I think other than the people here at Space of Mind would probably be the person that encouraged him the most.
Yeah, I mean,
To
this
do what
place
he's
is
doing.
great.
Really,
Was
Floyd
Floyd-
had that effect on him.
Yeah, he told him that I think you can be successful as a sports journalist, but always stay positive in your interviews. And I still remember that line he told him.
Wow, man. Like I think, because like some people say never meet your heroes, but then again, like you hear stories like that, and you're like, damn.
So your hero is Muhammad Ali.
It was growing up, sure. I mean, I think he was, but not just mine. He was,
A lot of people's hero.
yeah,
Yeah.
he appealed to the masses.
So you think Ali's the GOAT?
In my opinion, yes. Certainly best that I've seen. And then transcended the boxing, just, what he did as a person and who he was.
I sleep
So
under
the
him.
combo. What?
I have a picture of him on my wall.
Oh,
I
wow.
box too. My boxing coach gave me the
That's
picture.
great. Where do you box?
I boxed at Phoenix Boxing Gym.
Okay.
I used to be pretty big myself, like really big, and then I started boxing for a couple years, and I kind of quit, and now I'm starting to get back into it. My goal, I was talking to my coach last week. I'm like, I need to just get back into it. I started drinking energy drinks again because after school I'm tired. But then I mix that with an energy drink, and there is a big difference. Like I feel like I can train after 8 rounds on the heavy bag, or like just the bag in general. I could do more. It's just whether I want to do it, Whether when I don't have a Celsius, I'm like dead by 3. And like with a Celsius, my cardio is like on another planet.
Now, I'm not a Celsius drinker myself, but because of Zach, we have a fridge full of Celsius.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
You ever try one?
I think I tried one.
How'd you feel?
I felt a little too energetic for me.
But like I was talking to my coach about like
I start
how,
shaking after.
That's how I felt. But he loves them.
Yeah, no, they're great.
He has a pre-workout.
Like the next month and a half before summer, I got to get my summer body, even though I got a little barrel going on right now, but it's fine.
Me too.
It's okay. But like I want to have like a fight training program. Like I haven't sparred in like a year, so I need to get a mouth guard. And like the next month, I want to go like at least 4 days a week and just train my ass off and get into fighting condition.
That's great.
But it's so fun. I'm sure you used to box yourself, right?
Yeah, sure.
So like 10 minutes on the jump rope straight, 3 rounds shadow boxing, then 10 rounds on the bag. That's really standard, I would say.
Every, trainer is different, but that's a good workout. I mean, to me, the sparring, especially when it's competitive, was what would take a lot out of me.
That's the best, but like,
Yeah, the training never, other people would complain about it. Never, I just looked at it as great. I enjoyed that.
yeah, I mean, I like even shadow boxing with another person in front of you. That's probably my favorite part.
Yeah, I liked it. I love the heavy bag, just personally. And I like jumping rope and all
Yeah, I
of
love
that.
jumping rope. It's so fun. It goes by so quick.
I heard George St. Pierre say that there's a lot of fighters that have left their career out in the gym, meaning like they threw their career away, getting hit hard in sparring and all of those things. I feel like it's important. Like you gotta train hard, but you also have to train smart.
there's a lot to that. Now, the counter side to that is in boxing, which is a little different, is there's no other way to get good at boxing other than box.
Right.
And so you're kind of torn between, you don't want to overdo it, but you need to do it
Yeah.
in order to be sharp at it.
Well, and then you don't want to underdo it and then go into a fight and get
Right.
destroyed.
But it doesn't have to be a war every day. Now, I was really close with a Manuel Stewart, who I regarded as the best boxing trainer ever. And he had the famous Kronk Gym out of Detroit, and he was of the philosophy that iron sharpens iron and that the sparring should be brutal and tough and
Yeah.
extremely competitive and to a point of danger. I mean, with great fighters just trying to kill each other every day. And then other people don't subscribe to that thought process, other trainers,
Did you ever
certainly.
train under him?
He taught me some things, but to say I trained under him would be an exaggeration, but he definitely helped me with boxing.
His approach, obviously, you saw so much success from it, but I wonder the things that we don't know, the injuries that could have happened or that
Sure.
did happen.
And that's absolutely so,
Yeah.
And, you look at it with the NFL, they've cut back on the amount of practice you're allowed to do versus years ago. They're kind of regulating it. Just, not that I'm sure it's still brutal. It's still an incredible amount and intense, but it's at least regulated a little bit, versus
Yeah.
what I think any sort of contact sport, combat related and whatever, that you got to balance
I think
that.
boxing is ultimately the worst for your health.
You think there's more CTE in boxing than football?
100%.
I don't know. I mean, I would not disagree with that, but I don't know. I don't have any.
Yeah, I don't really know about football.
particular.
I don't
I don't
know.
have the stats to
I don't
say
know.
that, but I would say both can be pretty brutal, right?
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
The big difference in football, where boxing certainly you could see the direct, you're getting hit. I mean, and that's the object. But in football, the one difference, which is there can be such a significant size difference.
Yeah.
A lineman that's 350 pounds could potentially hit someone that's one of our size, that's a receiver or running back or
That's a
return
really
guy.
good, yeah,
So
it's a really good point.
that's like getting hit by a car, right?
a really
Versus
good
in
point.
boxing, other than some of these recent exhibitions, generally the people
Yeah.
are pretty much the same
Yeah, I mean, I
size.
love sparring like with the short guy because I'm tall. I just ding him in the head. I just keep the jab busy and just like he can't get under me because I'm just keeping the jab busy and I'm just dinging him in the head 24/7.
You can control distance,
So
That's a
fun.
good part of a boxing,
Yeah.
whichever the distance is,
Yeah.
Didn't Logan Paul fight Floyd Mayweather too?
He did.
Yeah, they had an exhibition fight here, and I went to that. That's one that I did get invited to and go to and enjoy.
Yeah. What was it like being there?
Oh, it was great. It was really good. It was funny. I was seated in between because Zach was able to get a box from a guy who was one of Floyd Mayweather's like right hand guys, and Deshaun, and on one side of me was Jeff Mayweather, Floyd's uncle, and on the other side of me was B.J. Flores, who's Jake Paul's coach, and that's who I was watching the fight with.
So fun. I'm sure like those people see fights from different angles. Even you being a boxer yourself.
Yeah, that was, I think that it was that was more of an exhibition,
Yeah.
let's say, than some others. But listen, Logan was impressive that he was able to do what he did in there, and he certainly didn't look like he didn't know what he was doing, and with one of the best ever to do it, and I think to Floyd's credit, I don't believe he was looking to really hurt Logan or embarrass him.
Yeah, it was a good payday for him.
Yeah, I'm sure it must have been. I don't know the specifics, but
I wonder what Zach was thinking because he's on both sides of that. Meaning, like, he's close with the Paul brothers, and then also Floyd is a big mentor to him. So I wonder
yeah, he had
what
sort
side
of
he was
a,
kind of
and,
taking.
and maybe it's his story really more to tell than mine, but he had sort of an interesting fallout sort of from that. He went with Floyd to the press conference, and he was talking to Jake up to like the second that he ran over and confronted him, and then the hat went missing, and there was some sort of perception that Zach had it or was involved with
Really?
it.
I forgot about that when Jake did the gotcha hat.
Yeah.
Who did
And
he
the-
steal it from?
From Floyd Mayweather.
Oh, he did?
And then
Yeah.
he got punched. Like
Yeah, Zach was in the middle of that kind of brawl. If you look
That's
back, he's
crazy.
in like a white dress shirt and
I'm gonna go back and watch
Yeah,
that.
I'm going to watch
yeah, he's
it.
like the one kid down
Wait,
there.
I
with
wonder,
him.
Sam, if you're in that
I don't think
in
he
the
is.
room.
He's probably...
Yeah, he's there. Pull that up.
Yeah, Zach's wearing like a
Gotcha hat. Search up gotcha hat Jake Paul.
And yeah, he and Zach, right before this happened, right before Floyd
Yeah.
walked over, were
Oh, it's a
together.
bad clip.
Gotcha hat.
Yeah.
Boom. I wonder if you could see
Yeah, I
that.
don't know. We'll see if, in this shot, if we can. He's wearing like a long sleeve
Try a
dress
different
shirt.
Because
That's crazy.
Yeah,
Yeah, that was like
that's so
chaos.
funny.
But I'll get you some pictures
Yeah.
or
Yeah,
video
that's-
from him
that's
because he's got
chaos.
it. Yeah, and he was there in the middle of the chaos, and it was kind of wild.
That's so fun.
Were you ever nervous for Zach being in that kind of crowd? You never know what could happen in those situations.
Not there, but it's true. You never know. I always just kind of trusted him and his judgment, even
Yeah.
from an early age. There was one point in his case where he had gone off, and I think it was the summer, but I could be wrong. It was during the pandemic, and so school was all virtual here at SOM. And Zach just used this as an opportunity to run with Jake Paul and those guys. And they're all older than him and whatever. And he was a different place at all times. He would kind of check in. And I was wondering, am I doing the right thing? But he's so convinced this is sort of a career move for him. And he's learning and he's sort of really loving it. And then there was some crazy thing where like the police or some
FBI
law
raided his
enforcement.
house, right?
Yeah, maybe it was the FBI raided the house, and I don't know.
He was in there?
What that was about. He had been there with him, right? They weren't home when this happened, but he had been there with Jake. And then the next thing is they're out in Las Vegas for whatever, and Zach was at a place called the Graffiti Mansion, and that got raided by the FBI, and he was the only one not detained because he was a kid, and that's when we told him, listen, you need to get on the next flight and get home. He's like, yeah. I'm like, no, I never say this to you, but
This one time you got
it's twice, that this is
Two times.
That's
the charm.
I don't know what he was, 17, 18, whatever, like your age, and
Yeah.
and supposed to be back here in school, and
That's funny.
I'm like, you need to get home. This is
Yeah.
too much, and
And Zach's obviously doing amazing for himself. We're so proud of him.
Yeah.
But you had an amazing career yourself. What's one thing that you were always pushing Zach, like something that you were telling him based on what you knew as a boxing manager and an entrepreneur?
oddly, I think Allie would attest to this. I never really pushed Zach, which is kind of an interesting thing. Whether it was, let's say, when he was playing sports, I didn't teach him to box when he was young. He went and learned that, even though we had owned a boxing gym when he was young. And I didn't really push him to do anything. I think I learned and knew better. And I think that made him maybe more attracted to it, is not ever, being pushed. And I wasn't that parent. And whatever he did, whether he was playing basketball or football or whatever, I'd just say, good job, and I enjoyed watching you, that kind of thing. And with this, I didn't even understand where it was going, but I
Gone
just,
somewhere.
yeah, I just, now I can see where it went. It's been very successful.
Was
but-
that a strategy not to push him? Like, was there thought behind that?
Yeah,
Or
I
it was
wanted
just the
I thought it
style
was the
that-
best for our relationship, and
Yeah.
I didn't want to be that parent, and I wanted, and I would say what I tried to do was, if he asked anything, I would always tell him, and maybe I had a story that could relate, and but I let him do, kind of gave him the freedom to find a lot of things on his own and let it be his thing. And that's, like I shared very early on, I'd never been to a podcast other than the pilots that he did with Jadakiss. And I've just always, we went out the very first time or two to L.A. To train with, when he was first starting with Jake and Logan. And then I think it was Logan Paul's first fight with KSI, or second fight maybe. It was the one in L.A.
Yeah.
And that was it. After that, I've stayed away from his events. Actually, there was one other one that I attended was when Jake Paul did his first fight in Miami, and a whole group from SOM went and watched it with Zach. And,
Really?
yeah, I watched it kind of in the background.
Oh, I
But
wish.
that's been the extent of it. I've stayed away from everything, let
Yeah.
him do his thing. And, the only thing that I ever gave him as advice is, have fun, make sure, you enjoy it and whatever. And the other day, his mother and a good friend of ours, Mark, had been asking me, what's he doing in L.A.? I don't really know at this moment. And I spoke to him very briefly, I think it was last night, and I said, what are you doing with it and what's going on? And he kind of cut me off after a couple questions and said, I'm having fun and really enjoying myself. And I just let it go at that. And that's kind of been my thought process as a parent. And that's why I think this place here is so special. Space of Mind is, you can learn and you can do whatever your abilities enable you to do, and enjoy yourself while you're doing it. And when we first met Allie and talked about Space of Mind and Hunter, and my priority was that my son was happy, and that was my only priority with it.
And now he's doing amazing. He's happy, like you said.
So
Yeah, and Space of Mind was a big part of that journey, and I can't overstate that, because I don't think that he would be a podcaster today or doing the other things he's doing if he didn't come here.
yeah, I'm sure. I mean, it's so crazy to where he is now from where he was. It's like it just proves the fact it doesn't happen overnight.
No, I don't think many things. You hear about all these overnight successes, but then you don't see all the work they put in the
Yeah.
background that nobody saw, right?
You know the work that Zach put in.
Yeah, and I think that's true of probably just about anyone who's experienced any level of success. That you've
Yeah.
got to put in the work that no one sees, and it's true with boxers too. Muhammad Ali actually talked about that. It's not the fights; it's all the runs and all the things and all the
Preparation.
sacrifices that no one saw or
All
knew
the
about.
meal planning, meal prep, every workout. Because
Yeah.
when you're that fit, that's all you do all day. It's just you have to work out, whether that be running in the morning and then like a 2-hour long boxing session in the afternoon.
And then Zach ended up going down a path that you're familiar with, boxing. Was
Yeah.
that exciting for you?
Yeah, it was interesting for me because knowing about it, I didn't know the influencer aspect, so
Yeah.
that was new to me, and I didn't see the potential for that he did, of the confluence of influence and boxing, and but it was the fact that it was boxing made it more interesting, because at least I understood
You
that
understood
part.
that
I think
aspect,
he's
yeah.
gonna box. I see it in the next 2 years. He's gonna box on brand risk. I feel like Aiden and Neon, and Zach are like I don't know if Zach knows Aiden Ross, but like I think Neon is so close to Aiden Ross, and I think it's not professional, but like I think Zach would do so good on brand risk because not a lot of them know how to fight, and he would just whoop everybody's ass on there.
How'd you feel about Zach getting in the boxing ring?
Well, he boxes.
But on in
Yeah.
front of the TV, like on a
I've spoke
professional.
to him about that, because
Yeah.
he's at a professional, what I would say is a professional level, not at Jake's level, but
Yeah.
at I've certainly seen professional boxers that weren't as good at, in their pro debut as maybe Zach is. And he said he does want to do it. And I asked him about the influence, and he said, no, he really would like to take the professional route, which surprised me, and fight like someone that's a professional boxer, maybe a little more experienced, a little more difficult.
That's
And,
crazy because
yeah.
the money in influencer boxing and so different.
at least to start with. and unless he was fighting like one of these very big names and
Yeah.
there was money.
Well, if that happens, we'll be there.
We have to be
We'll be
there.
ringside, hopefully.
Finally, I'll go to something.
Yeah.
Scott, thank you so much for coming on. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Yeah.
Oh,
same
thank
here.
you. And, I think it's incredible what you guys are doing and how from the very earliest days of them, like doing some of that SOM on Facebook
Yeah.
and
Yeah, I remember.
to sort of becoming, it was WSOM, they called it, to becoming the Mindcast that,
Yeah, I mean, we've kind of like started our own thing here. We took it upon ourselves, and we just, consistency is key. We started this last year, and then coming back to do it this year. It took us pretty much half the year to get it up and running again. But then once we got the ball rolling, it's over from there. Like guest after guest, it's what we love. And yeah, this was a great conversation. So
Yeah. Thank you for coming on.
Oh, thank you for having me. Thank you very much. It's first time I've been invited on a podcast, and
all right, we'll have you
I
back
really
for another
enjoyed
time.
it.
If you're down for it, we'll run it
Yeah.
back. Maybe we'll have you and Zach.
Maybe so. Or I could possibly recommend some of the fighters I've worked
Yeah,
with. I
that'd
know
be-
we'd love that.
would
You
be
had
so
Jamil,
great.
you were saying, and
Yeah, we had
Yeah,
Jamil
we'll
on.
grab
He's a
your
great
contact
character.
before
Yeah.
you leave.
absolutely. And thanks for having me on. You got it.